All right, let's talk about some of the most intimidating books in the Bible. You know the ones I'm talking about: Ezekiel, Revelation, the parts that can feel super dense, really confusing, and maybe even a little bit scary. We're going to take a look at these books through a fresh lens, drawing on some great insights from Faith Womack's No More Boring Bible Study.
I mean, let's just be real for a second. For a lot of us, opening up those prophetic books can feel more like a duty than a delight, right? There's this feeling that you should read them, but if you're being honest, you'd probably rather be reading almost anything else. They just feel weird, and you are definitely not alone in feeling that way.
The source material uses this hilarious and kind of perfect analogy. Trying to read these books can feel like cleaning out a chicken coop. It's this messy chore you keep putting off. It's not fun while you're doing it, but you do it because you feel like you have to. But here's the question. What if we've been approaching the whole thing wrong from the start?
Okay, so let's get right to the heart of the problem. A huge part of the frustration comes from the way many of us were taught to read these specific books. We treat them like they're some kind of mystery novel we have to solve.
This is what our source calls the clue book mentality. You know, we put on our little detective hats, and the entire goal becomes cracking a secret code. We're scanning every line for clues that we can match up with today's headlines, trying to piece together this perfect timeline of what's going to happen next. It's less about receiving a message and way more about conquering a puzzle.
And just think about this for a second. It's a simple historical fact. For all the centuries of people trying to decode the end times and pinpoint exact dates, the success rate has been, well, zero. A perfect 0%. That fact alone should probably make us pause and ask if we're even reading it the right way.
So why do we do this? Well, a lot of the time it comes from this really deep human desire to feel prepared, to feel like we're in control of a future that feels really uncertain. But the source makes a fascinating point. This urge can actually become what it calls an idol of control. Our need to know becomes more important than our call to just trust. And instead of bringing us peace, it usually just dials up our anxiety.
Okay, so if the whole clue book thing is a dead end, what are we supposed to do? Well, the answer isn't to just give up on these books. It's to put on a new pair of glasses. It's all about understanding the specific kind of writing we're looking at, which is called apocalyptic literature.
And this is the absolute game changer. Apocalyptic literature was never meant to be a crystal ball. It's a specific literary style, genre, that uses these wild, vivid, sometimes surreal symbols and images. And its main purpose wasn't to give us a detailed schedule for the future, but to give the original audience, people living through unbelievable persecution, a message of profound encouragement and hope.
So what does that actually look like? Well, this genre has its own set of rules, you could say. It is soaked in metaphors and symbols, not literal predictions. The timeline isn't always straight. It often uses repeating cycles to really hammer a point home. And it's always focused on the ultimate judgment of evil and the good news of salvation and encouragement for God's people. That's the primary goal.
And you know, once you get that, everything starts to shift. The pressure to be a code breaker just vanishes. And what's left is a message that is incredibly powerful for our lives today.
You can really see the difference side by side here. On one side, you've got the clue book approach. It's all about conquering a puzzle, and it leads straight to anxiety. But on the other side, you have the genre approach, seeking a message of encouragement which gives you hope for living your life right now. The whole focus shifts from obsessing about tomorrow to living faithfully today. This is so important to remember. Just try to imagine being one of the first people hearing the book of Revelation read aloud. You are facing real, life-threatening danger because of your faith. This message, with all its crazy imagery of ultimate justice and God's final victory, wouldn't sound like a confusing puzzle. It would sound like a lifeline. It was a message of endurance and hope for their present struggles, not just a bunch of clues for our future.
So here's the bottom line. When we read these books through the right lens, understanding their genre, they stop being a source of confusion and start being this deep well of strength and encouragement. The goal isn't about figuring out what's coming next anymore. It's about finding the hope and the grit we need to navigate the challenges we're facing in our own lives, right here and now.
And that really leaves us with this one final, powerful question to chew on. What if we've been staring so hard at the horizon that we've completely missed the treasure that's right at our feet? What if the point of these books isn't to make us all future tellers, but to make us faithful survivors in the here and now? That one little shift in perspective, it changes everything.